Picture this. You have the perfect plan. You've mapped out your day, your week, your career path. You've color-coded the spreadsheets, set the reminders, and bought the non-refundable tickets. It's a work of art, a testament to human foresight and organization. And then, life happens. The flight is canceled, the key client pulls out, a global pandemic decides to rearrange the entire world. The project you've poured your heart into is suddenly obsolete. That perfect plan? It's now a piece of historical fiction. In that moment of stunning, unexpected chaos, what do? Do you freeze? Do you rage at the universe? Do you crumble like a building in an earthquake? Or do you take a deep breath, look at the scattered pieces and say, all right, what can I build with this? Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast, my friends. Today, we're talking about what might be the single most important yet most underrated superpower of the 21st century: adaptability. We're not just talking about going with the flow. We're talking about a dynamic, active skill of flexing, pivoting, and thriving in the face of uncertainty. It's the essential ingredient for success in a world that refuses to stand still. So in this episode, we're going to dissect this crucial skill. We'll be tackling some burning questions. Why is adaptability no longer a soft skill, but the core currency for navigating our careers and personal lives? What is the fundamental difference in mindset between someone who shatters under pressure and someone who bends without breaking? We'll explore the timeless analogy of the rigid oak tree versus the flexible bamboo. And perhaps the most vital question of all, is adaptability an innate personality trait you're either born with or not? Or is it a muscle that anyone, and I mean anyone, can train and strengthen with the right techniques? This is a deep dive into the psychology and practice of becoming more flexible. And as always, consider this a starting point, a map to a fascinating territory. True mastery comes from practice, self-reflection, and a commitment to ongoing learning, not from a single dose of information. And this is your invitation to begin that trip. So, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by a sudden change or wished you could handle life's curveballs with a little more grace and a lot less panic, this episode is for you. It's time to learn how to stop resisting the current and start learning how to navigate it. I'm Danny, and this is English Plus Podcast. Now let's get right to the heart of it. We live in an era of perpetual motion. Technology evolves, industries are disrupted overnight, and social norms shift. The idea of a linear, predictable career path, the kind our grandparents might have had, is becoming increasingly rare. In this new landscape, the individuals and organizations that thrive are not necessarily the strongest, the biggest, or even the smartest in a traditional sense. They are the most adaptable. Charles Darwin's often misquoted as saying it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, it is the one most adaptable to change. Now, while he never wrote those exact words, the sentiment is the absolute core of his theory, and it has never been more applicable to human life than it is today. So, what is adaptability really? It's a composite skill. Think of it as a trinity of abilities: cognitive flexibility, emotional regulation, and practical resourcefulness. Cognitive flexibility is your ability to switch your thinking, to see a problem from multiple angles, and to let go of old ideas that are no longer working. Emotional regulation is your capacity to manage your feelings in the face of stress and uncertainty, to not let panic or frustration hijack your brain. And practical resourcefulness is your skill at finding new tools, new methods, and new paths to achieve your goals when the original one is blocked. Now let's use a classic metaphor: the oak and the bamboo. The mighty oak tree is a symbol of strength and rigidity. It stands firm, powerful, and unyielding. For centuries, it can dominate the landscape. But when a truly ferocious hurricane force wind comes along, an unexpected paradigm shifting event, that very rigidity becomes its downfall. The oak tree resists and resists until, with a great crack, it snaps and falls. The bamboo, on the other hand, is slender and seemingly delicate. But when that same hurricane force wind arrives, the bamboo does something remarkable. It bends, it flexes, sometimes all the way to the ground, yielding to the force it cannot possibly resist. And when the storm passes, it springs back up, unharmed. This is adaptability in action. It's not weakness. It's a different, more resilient kind of strength. So, how do we become less oak and more bamboo? Well, the good news is this is not a fixed trait. It is a mindset and a collection of habits that can be cultivated. It all starts with a foundation, embracing a growth mindset. This concept, popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck, is the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. It's the opposite of a fixed mindset, which is the belief that your traits are static and unchangeable. A person with a fixed mindset, when faced with a new, challenging piece of software at work, might say, "I'm just not a tech person. I can't do this." It's a dead end. A person with a growth mindset would say, "This is complex and I don't get it yet, but I can learn it." This simple shift in internal monologue from "I can't" to "I can learn" is the seed of all adaptability. Building on that foundation, the next layer is cultivating relentless curiosity. Adaptable people are not afraid of the new. They are intrigued by it. When a new trend emerges in their field, their first reaction isn't, "Oh no, another thing to learn." It's, "What's that all about? How does it work? How could I use it?" Curiosity is the antidote to the fear of change. It reframes a threat as an opportunity. It turns a closed door into a puzzle to be solved. The third, and perhaps most difficult pillar, is mastering your emotional response. When that unexpected curveball comes flying at you, our primal lizard brain reaction is to panic, the fight, flight, or freeze response. Adaptable people have trained themselves to insert a pause between the stimulus and the response. This is where practices like mindfulness come in. By learning to observe your emotions without immediately being consumed by them, you give your rational brain a chance to catch up. You can acknowledge the feeling. "Wow, this is incredibly frustrating," without letting that frustration dictate your next move. The goal is not to be emotionless, not at all. It is to be unflappable, to remain calm and centered even when the world around you is a vortex of chaos. And finally, this all culminates in a bias for action and a focus on solutions. Once you've accepted you can learn the growth mindset, understood the new reality, curiosity, and managed your initial panic, your emotional regulation, the crucial next step is to pivot. This is the moment you stop dwelling on the problem, the canceled flight, the lost client, and you start brainstorming the solution. The plan is ruined becomes, "Okay, plan A is out. Let's start working on plan B." Adaptable people spend far less time mourning the past and far more time building the future. They ask, "What now?" and "How can we?" instead of "Why me?" So, how do you actually practice this? You have to intentionally step outside your comfort zone. It's like exercise for your brain. Learn a skill that has nothing to do with your career. Learn to play the guitar, code a simple app, or cook a complex cuisine. Each time you stumble and learn from a mistake, you are strengthening your adaptability muscle. Travel to a place where you don't speak the language. The experience of having to navigate an unfamiliar environment forces you to improvise and think on your feet. Even small changes help. Take a different route to work. Rearrange the furniture in your room. Try a restaurant you would normally never go to. These minor disruptions to your routine break down the rigid patterns in your brain and make it more comfortable with novelty. In the end, adaptability is the art of gracefully letting go of the future you planned to embrace the future that is actually arriving. It is the quiet confidence that no matter what changes come your way, you have the inner resources to bend, to learn, and to thrive. In a world that promises only one thing, more change, there is no more valuable skill to possess. Well, that was about adaptability, my friends. I hope you learned a thing or two, and as I told you, this is just an introduction to what adaptability is and to the practices and the things you can do to improve this skill. And trust me, anybody can improve this skill. It's not something you were born with. But with that being said, now it's time for us to focus on language. Our vocabulary and speaking sections are coming up. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. All right, we've talked a lot about the theory behind becoming more bamboo-like. Now let's get practical and break down some of the key vocabulary and phrases that surround this topic. Mastering this language will help you talk about change and challenges with more precision and confidence. Now, let me start with a word I used a lot, to pivot. Now, in a literal sense, a pivot is a central point on which something turns. But in the worlds of business and self-development, to pivot means to make a fundamental change in strategy when it becomes clear your current one isn't working. It's a very popular term. A company might pivot from selling a product to selling a subscription service. On a personal level, you could say, after being laid off from my marketing job, I decided to pivot and pursue a career in nursing. It's not just a small change, it is a conscious, strategic shift in direction. So that was about to pivot. Now let's move on to another word. Close cousin to adaptability is resilience. Now, resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, the toughness you have. If adaptability is how you flex during a storm, resilience is how you bounce back after it. They are intertwined but distinct. You could say, for example, her resilience was amazing. She lost her job and found a better one within a month. It's about your ability to get back up after being knocked down, which is a key outcome of being adaptable. So that was about resilience. Next, let's talk about to be thrown a curveball. Now, that's a fantastic idiom. In baseball, a curveball is a pitch that unexpectedly breaks and curves as it approaches the batter, making it hard to hit. In life, to be thrown a curveball means to be faced with a completely unexpected and difficult problem. For example, we can say, we were all set to launch the new website, but the lead developer quit, which really threw us a curveball. It perfectly captures that feeling of I didn't see that coming. So that is to be thrown a curveball. Next, we got a very practical term, and this one is contingency plan. A contingency plan is a plan designed to take a possible future event or circumstance into account. It's your plan B, C, and D. Adaptable people are great at this. They hope for the best, of course, but plan for the worst. You could say, our main speaker is confirmed, but we have a contingency plan with a backup speaker just in case she gets sick. This is the essence of being proactive rather than reactive. That's adaptation. And now let's move on to a more casual phrase. It's to go with the flow. Well, what does that mean? Well, this means to be relaxed and accept a situation rather than trying to control it. It is a good quality, of course, but it can sometimes be a bit passive. For example, I didn't have a preference for which restaurant we went to, so I was happy to just go with the flow. Well, adaptability is more active than this. It's not just floating along, it's actively steering your raft through the changing currents. And now let's move on to talk about the opposite of being adaptable, and this is to be set in one's ways. Now, this describes someone who is stubborn, has fixed habits, and is unwilling to change. It usually has a negative connotation. For example, my grandfather is completely set in his ways. He refuses to even try using a smartphone. It's a great phrase to describe the rigid, oak-like mentality. So that is to be set in your ways or in one's ways. Next, let's talk about a fantastic verb for adaptability, and this one is to improvise. To improvise means to create and perform spontaneously and without preparation. It's what jazz musicians do when they solo or what actors do in improv comedy. In life, it's about making things up as you go along when your plan fails. For example, the projector broke right before my presentation, so I had to improvise with the whiteboard. It highlights your ability to be creative under pressure. And now let me move to another adjective I used, and this one is fluid. Well, this one describes a more adaptable approach. Now, fluid means not fixed or settled. It means able to change easily. Now, it suggests grace and a lack of friction. Now, you can talk about a fluid situation, meaning it's constantly changing. Or you can describe a person's approach as fluid. For example, she has a very fluid management style, adapting her approach to each employee's needs. It's a very elegant word that you can use in many different contexts. But that's not the last word we want to talk about today. We still have two more. Next, we got the ability to think on your feet. Now, this means to make good decisions and react quickly in a difficult or unexpected situation. It's about rapid, real-time problem solving. For example, when the client asked a question I wasn't prepared for, I had to think on my feet and give a confident answer. It's metis in action. Well, I'm just borrowing a term from our last episode. And finally, there's a wonderful adjective for the emotional side of adaptability, and this one is unflappable. If you are unflappable, you are calm and composed, especially in a crisis. It means you don't get easily flustered or panicked. For example, we can say, despite the chaos breaking out all around him, the pilot was completely unflappable, which calmed the passengers. It's the bamboo-like emotional state we all aspire to. So these are the words that I wanted to share with you. Now let's get to our speaking section. How do we use this language to improve our speaking skills? Well, today's focus is on proactive and solution-oriented communication. When things go wrong, it's easy to use language that is reactive and problem-focused, like, "This is a disaster, it's all ruined." An adaptable communicator, however, uses language to calm the situation, acknowledge the reality, and immediately shift the focus toward a solution. Now, let's break down the formula. It has three parts. The first part is acknowledge and validate. Calmly state the problem and validate any feelings of frustration. This shows you're grounded in reality. Use phrases like, "Okay, it looks like we've been thrown a curveball here," or "I understand this is frustrating, but let's take a look at our options." And then the second step, propose a pivot. This is where you introduce the change in direction. Use collaborative and forward-looking language. Phrases like, "I think we need to pivot," or "How about we try a different approach?" or "This means plan A is out, so let's move to our contingency plan." And finally, the third step, focus on the action. End by suggesting a concrete next step. This moves the conversation from discussion to action. Use phrases like, "My immediate thought is to do something," whatever it is. Or, "The first thing we need to do is something." Or, "Let's improvise a solution for the short term." So that's the skill. Now here's your challenge. I want you to practice this exact scenario. Imagine the situation. You're organizing a big outdoor community event for tomorrow, and the weather forecast has suddenly changed to a full day of heavy rain. Your original plan is toast. Your mission is to record yourself role-playing a short phone call or meeting with your co-organizer. In that recording, I want you to use the three-step formula. Acknowledge the problem, propose a pivot, and suggest a concrete action, and I want you to incorporate at least 3 of the vocabulary words we discussed today. Now, you might mention your contingency plan, the need to improvise, or how you need to remain unflappable. But of course, you can choose other words from the words we talked about. Now, this challenge will train you to use language that not only makes you sound more professional and in control, but actually helps you and the people around you become more adaptable in real time. So record yourself, use these techniques, use some of the vocabulary we talked about, and then listen to yourself later and see how you handled it. Or, of course, you can share your recording with me. And now it's time for our discussion questions. Now, we've broken down the why and the how of adaptability. Now I want to bring you into the conversation. This is a skill that touches every part of our lives, so your personal experiences and opinions are incredibly valuable. And here are a few questions to get you started. Let's talk about adaptability versus persistence. Where is the line? Now, we are often told to never give up, but adaptability requires us to know when to pivot or let go of an idea. How do you know when to be persistent and when to be adaptable? Now, I want you to think about a time you stuck with a failing project for too long, being a rigid oak, or a time you gave up on something too early. What signals tell you it's time to pivot versus time to double down and push through? So that's the first question. Next is about your greatest adaptation. Now, think about a time in your life when you were thrown a major curveball, a change in career, a move to a new country, an unexpected personal challenge. How did you adapt? Now, share what the situation was and what specific strategies, consciously or unconsciously, you used to navigate it. What did you learn about yourself in the process? Well, this is a chance to recognize your own resilience. And my next question is about adaptability in the workplace and whether it is a double edged sword. Companies today prize adaptable employees, but can this expectation be taken too far? Can it be used to justify constant instability, understaffing, or a lack of clear direction from leadership? Now, where's the healthy boundary between a dynamic, flexible work environment and a chaotic, stressful one? How can employees remain adaptable while also protecting their own well being and need for some stability? My next question is about technology. Is it a crutch or a catalyst? Does modern technology make us more or less adaptable? On one hand, it gives us instant access to information and tools to solve problems. On the other, does our reliance on GPS, planners, and instant answers weaken our innate ability to improvise? Think about the last time your phone died and you had to navigate somewhere. Did you feel empowered or lost? Debate whether technology is a tool for adaptability or a crutch that makes us more rigid when it fails. And my final question is about cultivating adaptability in the next generation. Now, if adaptability is so crucial, how should we be teaching it? What can parents, teachers, and communities do to help children develop into flexible, resilient adults? Now, discuss the role of things like unstructured play, problem-solving games, exposure to new experiences, and even letting kids experience and overcome small, safe failures. How does this contrast with a more rigid, test-focused educational system? Well, I genuinely look forward to seeing your insights on these complex questions. And with that, my friends, we conclude our deep dive into the skill of adaptability. It's a journey that starts with a simple mindset shift but can fundamentally change how you experience a world that is, by its very nature, unpredictable. The goal is not to predict the future, but to become so flexible and resilient that you are confident you can handle whatever future arrives. Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive and want to continue improving your English while exploring fascinating topics, there are a few ways you can become a part of the English Plus ecosystem. You can find the transcripts for these episodes, extra learning materials, and our entire back catalog on our website EnglishPlusPodcast.com and of course on our Patreon page, especially for our premium episodes. And that brings me to this. For an even richer experience, you can unlock all our premium podcast episodes by subscribing to English Plus Premium on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. Your support there helps me keep the lights on and continue creating the content you love. And for those of you who want to even take it a step further and want the complete package, you can also subscribe to my All Access tier on Patreon. Well, this gives you access to everything, all the podcast series and courses, and of course, for those who are interested, a front row seat to my own creative work, including my music and writing. Well, it's the ultimate way to learn, enjoy the content, and of course, support an independent creator like myself. Thank you very much for lending me your ears today. Your time and attention are the most valuable things you can give, and I'm grateful you chose to spend them here. I'm Danny, and this is English Plus Podcast. Until next time, keep learning, stay curious, and remember to bend, not break. And also, remember, never stop learning. I will see you next time.